What are some dark secrets about the porn industry? I distinctly remember some old Nerdist Network podcast. Can't remember if this was the main one or the one with Pete Holmes or with E. But there was a guest who learned video editing by being an assistant editor for a guy who cut porn movies in the 90s. The day he quit that gig was when they were editing a cumshot scene and saw the dude had blood mixed in the semen and the lead editor went AHA. Syphilis. And just made sure they color corrected it to make sure no one could tell in the finished product. One of my friends worked as a cameraman for porn and he said that basically every porn set smells like sweat and shit. Years ago a former porn star, most people suspect Cody Lane, did an anonymous AMA where she revealed a ton of the terrible things that can happen in the industry. This comment she made about a scene she did really highlights how dark it can be, as she was gang raped to pay off gambling debts. And I did a scene that David Stanley directed with Brian Sherwood, Sasha and Joel Lawrence and Andrew Andretti, which went way too far. I was dating Sasha at the time and had lost a lot of money in Vegas because I'm very compulsive. And I was living with Sasha. He was very abusive, but I had always been in abusive relationships since I was young. I lost my virginity at 8 to my stepdad, and I got to the point where I thought men treated me bad because they loved me so much and it was just passion. Which is what my mom had told me. That when a man is passionate and doesn't want to lose you, sometimes he strikes out. And anyways, I needed money bad and he arranged for us to do a really rough scene. A rough gangbang with all of them. I knew it was going to be rough, but it went nuts. With them telling me things like I wouldn't get paid if I said stop. That it's amateur hour if I make people show up for a shoot and then pull out. Etc. etc. And so I went through with the scene. It was very painful. Very rough. Very crazy. And at one point I felt disconnected from my body because the anal was so painful. When it was over I shivered for days and started having panic attacks. And shortly after I quit. But they kept trying to get me to come back because they were afraid I'd talk. The scene was never released until 2 years later when I was still doing work, because if it had been my last scene, they said it would have showed that they had gone too far. But because I stayed in the business after the scene was filmed, it proved somehow that the film was not that bad and that I was just acting. And that scene really messed with my head though, and after that I got a reputation for being a cute girl who would do anything. And pretty soon I could get booked for nothing but rough scenes. Nobody wanted to see me in boy-girl or girl-girl anymore. They wanted to see me in crazy rough sex. And I still cry and have nightmares about it to this day. They still work when on their period and stick a makeup sponge up there that they pull out at the end of the workday. You should watch the interview with porn actors on YouTube. Very enlightening. According to some sources, cam models in certain countries who work in cam studios are more or less forced by their pimps to cam every day for hours. Some even say that some of those studios are owned by the mob and that they also use it for money laundering. There was a documentary shown on Channel 4 TV, UK, a few years ago called Hardcore, available on YouTube, which is about a British woman who goes to LA to work in the porn industry. It's horrendous. At about 40 minutes in, she is taken to meet a well-known anal sex porn actor, and has to do a scene with him. At one point, it's too much for her and she runs off set, as she feels she's being abused and can't take it. He tries to persuade her to return, getting ever more verbally abusive towards her, until eventually she agrees to return and finish the scene. At this point the film crew broke the fourth wall, because they felt that she was being coerced against her will and they couldn't stand by and watch her being raped. And within 5 minutes they got her out of the house and to safety. Sadly, the man who was grooming her in the industry got her back to work doing gonzo movies. So I'm pretty late to this party, but I actually used to work in the industry several years ago. One company based in Tucson, Arizona, another major one based in Canada, and then a smaller affiliate network also based in Canada. Funny enough, all three were eventually bought by Manwin, MindGeek, Pornhub, RedTube, YouPorn, etc. I built TGPs, MGPs, those free sites that would give you samples. Did some editing of videos. Modded a couple tube sites. And submitted stuff to larger free gallery networks, affiliate stuff. I've gone to industry shows, AVN awards, expos, etc. I got out of it like around 2010 or 11. It's foggy. The porn must flow, new content would come in, filmed, shot, daily, and it needed to be edited, published ASAP. It didn't matter what the talent looked like. Hot. Drugged out of their gourds. Crying. Happy. Questionable age. Raped. Didn't matter. The company paid for it and it all had to be used. If I objected to questionable material, I was told to ignore it and do my job. Very few companies maintain a 2257 database. 2257 is a U.S. law where companies are required to keep records of the ages of all the talent they use. In one company we had 2 ladies whose entire job, 8 hours a day, was to view, log, and store all the IDs that came in. No, I'm not joking. 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, they were viewing and logging all the IDs from new talent that would come in. That's how much porn was shot and how much of it was from new talent. It consisted of the model holding their IDs next to their faces. These photos were the first ones before any of the porn photos, so while I was building out galleries I would also see them. 4 times out of 10 the model has their thumb over their date of birth. Prolapses happen. When the stuff is shot, it's shipped off to the main office to be edited. Like I said, they shoot everything. Nothing is tossed. So if there's an anal sex scene and a model's ass falls out, it's on camera. For the majority of the stuff it's edited out, but the footage is saved just in case. When I say that, who knows if the company is going to release some Uber fetish site down the road. Everything is saved. I've seen girls who've done one too many anal scenes start to cry and panic when their ass falls out because they think their career is done. On set, nurse sometimes would just push it back in and they'd switch to something else to film. It's a very closed-door industry. Everyone knows everyone. Affiliates like to only be called by their online screen names and get offended if you call them by their actual name. There were industry message boards back in the day. One that stands out is gofuckyourself.com or something, where everyone knew everyone and had agendas against each other. Ever have to meet someone in person and call them Batman or Harry Twatter to their faces? I have. It's unpleasant. Day one I was told I needed to come up with a name and I thought they were joking. No. It's quite serious. They're all looking to stab each other in the back for higher payouts. Scam the system. Or accuse others of whatever. If you got footage of one them doing coke or a producer the company didn't really like doing drugs or fucking or whatever, then you were told to save that footage. Again, just in case. It's an industry full of middle schoolers who got rich from DVDs. People are weird about their porn. You know how if you ever worked in a restaurant or fast food place and people get crazy or insanely angry when their food isn't exactly how they want it? Porn is worse. If you don't post stuff daily or it's not up to their standards, you'll get hate mail, death threats, etc. Guys like to submit their own videos to gay tube sites who might not even be gay. I had to moderate these videos. I'm not gay, by the way, meaning daily we'd get user submissions and I'd either allow them to be posted or denied them. I also moderated the straight tube sites. Majority of the time there'd be messages attached to said videos asking if I watched them, what I thought about them, did I jerk off to it, etc. Not a whole lot of women making submissions, but 8 times out of 10 it's dudes. These are homemade videos, by the way. I saw a lot of homemade rape, child porn, borderline snuff, guys injecting their balls and dicks with stuff, drug use, etc. Oh, and actual incest. Not like the son I'm stuck in the washing machine. Incest, but actual, this is my sister and she's going to suck my dick, or moms jerking off their sons. Dads having sex with their sons, daughters, etc. How do I know it's real? Remember that 2257 stuff? ... Yeah. Majority of it doesn't make its way online because it'll be denied, but it does happen. A lot. I think that's most of the main stuff off the top of my head. Like I said, I haven't done it in over a decade and I've switched careers several times. I'm desensitized to it now and won't watch it at all. Edit. So after a couple of hours replying to people and what have you, I realized, yeah. Wow. This is super dark. So let me try to lighten the mood a bit with the funniest thing I've ever seen in porn. There was a video, filmed in like the late 80s, of an E.T. porn. Like the movie E.T. It was a woman in full E.T. makeup. Like actually pretty good. The head, body, everything except for her vagina. So you think, oh that's weird, but it gets better. Everyone else in the shoot was dressed in Victorian outfits. So it's a movie that apparently took place in the Victorian era and men and women dressed up like that were all taking turns fucking E.T. If the site eFucked still exists, you could probably find it on there. So there ya go. Good night. The most famous porn film of all time is Deep Throat. A movie so ubiquitous that it actually saw release in regular theaters. The whistleblower of the infamous Watergate scandal even used it as his codename. A lot of people don't realize that the female star of the film, Linda Borman, was blackmailed and coerced into taking the role. She later said, "Every time someone watches that movie, they're watching me being raped. They take shots into their dicks to stay hard." Well over a decade ago I watched a British documentary about the porn industry in the UK. There was a couple that gave some pretty nasty details. The guy said that virtually all guys had to do gay porn to make enough money or get into the straight porn circuit. The girl said that frequent and rough sex caused a lot of damage to her bits. She was incontinent and often had a rectal prolapse. Edit. I think the scene was from a documentary series called The Dark Side of Porn that aired on Channel 4, UK, in 2005. I haven't yet been able to find the exact scene though. It wasn't the Louis Theroux episodes. His docs were filmed in the US. I had a relative who worked with Women and Children Protection Services. They told me how dirt-poor parents force their kids to have sex with foreigners to have money they usually spend on gambling. A lot of those extremely large penises are fake, or they use a penis pump in order to look larger. To quote a Redditor's comment from yesterday, "What a horrible day to be literate." Reading through these threads is honestly a great way to lose the addiction to porn. Once you realize how synthetic and dehumanized it is. When I was 19, I was pretty much strapped for cash in a new city. And took whatever gigs I could. One was as a driver for a video agency. I basically picked girls up from the airport and took them to their shoot. Some of these girls were scared shitless. And I'd tell them, "I can always tell them I couldn't find you. And you can go home right now." After the third girl asked me to pull over, I stopped. That shit was hard on me as a teenager. That hard fucking slapping sound is someone in post-production slapping a couple of chicken breasts together. Boneless. Skinless. A friend of mine worked as one of those chat girls on websites where you pay per message to chat with hot girls. He's a guy. Direct ties to the sex trafficking industry. Though that's pretty obvious. They aren't actually stuck. Lot of dead porn stars, including a bunch of OD and suicide. Even if you've used reputable sites like Pornhub, it's very likely you've watched rape and underage porn. It just was never labeled as such. There is so much trafficking and slavery around porn. Some clips on Pornhub are honestly terrifying. And you can tell it's coercion. I don't understand why it's not better regulated. I guess the public really only value their own titillation over the safety and freedom of sex slaves. It's awful. Edit. Thank you for the gold. My first ever award. This really makes me hate porn. This could help people for sure. A friend of mine was in a couple of films. She was a heavy drug user and barely remembers her time in it. And now she lives with constant anxiety of people finding out. She also said makeup on some of the girls is just to hide needle marks. Edit * to clarify. She was in a bad place and doing a lot of drugs. It was consensual to go into porn. And yes, she has lots of counseling and is running an excellent fruit-veg store now. There is a YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly, where the guy interviews all sorts of people, porn actors, prostitutes, addicts, etc., to try and find a common denominator in their life as how they fell there. The porn industry is awful for the men and women. Sure, it looks fun, but many turn into drug addicts, are abused, have very, very low self-esteems. The men inject meds into their penis in order to perform when Viagra does not work and lots of suicide and drug overdoses. Most MILFs aren't even mothers. The nurse or doctor on call to dispense pain medication and a few stitches when that double anal with two thick guys hanging 11 tears something in the female performer. The girl who shows up thinking she's just going to be topless and literally gets threatened into signing a waiver saying choking slap sex, and if she doesn't do it 2 guys will kick the shit out of her. The people trafficked into sex work. The cokehead boyfriend pimping a girl out because he owes some people too much money. Or can't afford his next fix. Got her hooked too, so she will be readily complying. The girl who gets 137 guys to gang bang her and risks AIDS. And gets stiffed on the payment while the video goes on to make tons of money. It's a vile business. There are men and women who model for a very niche fetish of porn. Think sexualizing food. They are forced to smile on camera and pretend to enjoy that even though they are super grossed on the inside and very sad about having to do that. One of the clips I watched, I heard the man telling the girl, if you smile while doing this and don't cry while doing this, I will be able to sell more videos. I know that in a lot of the hardcore Japanese torture porns, they did not make directions clear when they let female actresses sign the contract. So these actresses had no idea what they would be doing, and it's too late to find out. They can't just say, I quit, I can't do this, during filming either. Since the liquidated damages are extremely expensive. It's just rape. I'm not gonna lie, this thread has made me very disappointed in humanity. I am not a porn star, yet. But I worked on an interview a porn star show and spoke candidly backstage with a star who was well known at the time. The most notable thing she told me is girls don't really squirt. That's just them peeing on guys. Check casting and girls do porn. Them dark. I made a comment in our tip of my penis about people being careful about consuming porn from Japan where the girls look uncomfortable or scared. It's because a lot of them are. Their family. A relative. They themselves owe money to the wrong people and are forced into porn. When I mentioned how widespread sex trafficking and the like is in some porn, I was instantly banned for spreading lies about sex trafficking. That when porn stars do AMAs, they aren't going to say anything that hurts their product. People shit on Woody for Rampart, but hardly anyone says anything about the constant tee-hee. I love fucking when they appear to promote their sites and videos. I don't have anything to offer about the industry as I have never been involved in it, but the best quote I have ever heard about it was, "If emotional scars were visible, porn would be impossible to watch." Child porn. There is an extreme big network of professional child porn industry going on. There's a whole lot of rape. If you've ever jerked off to porn, you've probably jerked off to a woman being raped at least once. Even professional studios have been caught flying young desperate women from one side of the country to the other under the false pretense of it being a modeling job and then telling them it's porn. And if they refuse to do it, they'll leave them stranded 4,000 miles from home. The reason Pornhub cracked down so hard on unverified accounts a while back was because there were dozens and dozens of amateur videos of women and men being drugged and raped. Including one pretty famous case of a 14-year-old girl being kidnapped and forcibly raped that Pornhub refused to take down for years. They're not really plumbers. That a lot of female performers, especially the ones who do rough scenes, were sexually abused as children. I've heard horror stories of girls giving blowjobs or straight up having sex as young as 6 yo. I had a friend who was the finisher for porn. When he came, he would naturally ejaculate loads, so he would help out his friend who directed pornos and he would finish on the women but not actually have sex with them. This has enlightened me to how nasty people really are. I'm leaving now. People in porn don't actually love each other. And amateurs in porn are most likely not amateurs. There was a documentary on Netflix called Hot Girls Wanted, and it was all about how these sketchy porn producers recruit girls who are barely 18 through Craigslist with promises of making $5,000 per month. They follow these two girls who move from the Midwest to Florida and start immediately working. Within a few weeks, one of them has to go to the hospital because she has a growth on her vagina. The nurse told her it happens a lot to women who have a lot of sex. They also have to pay all of their expenses including clothes and makeup, so they barely make any money. They also talked to a woman who was in the industry for a few months and basically she had no protection from her manager. She said she flew to Texas or something to do a shoot, and when she got there it was just one guy in an apartment with a camera on a tripod. She wanted to leave but thought the guy would hurt her or that she would get in trouble if she left, so she did it even though she really didn't want to. Another woman left her company and started her own because she said she was often humiliated and degraded during shoots. She said they make you feel inhuman. It was an interesting but overall depressing documentary. There's an entire pipeline in the porn industry that mirrors human trafficking. To be completely honest, I live in a city where porn production is legal. I was approached once to be on set and basically serve as a sort of house mom on the set in order to make the girls feel more comfortable. It was an easy gig. I would have seen a cool $5 7K for doing really little. Honestly, I was going to do it. I was really pro-porn back then. Now, not so much. I learned how these girls were sourced. A huge part of it was that the production company had connections to drug dealers that would often target and groom barely legal drug users that are clearly troubled and forming a dependency. Through this dependency, they're exploited. When I mean barely legal, I mean fucking high schoolers that just turned 18. The porn being produced was violent. It was one of those studios that focused on rough sex. They needed another woman on set to console and comfort these girls because they were tired of them having panic attacks on set following it. I was about to take on the job. I was like 24 at the time and that type of easy money sounded great. But I'm sure I would have been groomed into doing this just as well. I was so fucking disgusted that my entire outlook on porn and honestly, sex work as a whole changed completely. I'll be damned if anyone really tries to tell me it's empowering. Especially to women. I think the darkest secret about the porn industry is that you don't really know if what you're consuming is ethical. The concept of consent in the studio is blurry once the camera starts rolling. Things can and often go awry and there isn't much to say once it does, and if you're talking about a situation like the one I was exposed to, I don't even think those girls really understand if and when their consent is being violated. It being a transactional act versus an organic one brings a whole slew of changes in the definition of what consent means in that context. And there's plenty of porn stars that have come out to talk about this very thing. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.